Some experts warn rising rents will push more younger people like Kayla out of the city, and many of them are using Vancouver as an example of what could happen in Toronto. Dr. Paul Kershaw is a professor with the University of British Columbia and founder of Generation Squeeze. That's a campaign that raises awareness about the pressures faced by young Canadians. So let's start with what you are talking about as a generational ghost town. When you're talking about Vancouver, can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. What we're finding both in the GTA and even more so in Metro Vancouver is that hard work doesn't pay off for younger Canadians in our 20s, 30s, and early 40s like it used to. For instance, it used to take 5 to 6 years to save a 20% down payment on an average priced home in both of these cities. Now it takes 20 years in the GTA, 27 in Metro Vancouver. And as a result, just think about what that means. That means literally young adults are losing decades of hard worked output in terms of trying to make a home. And as a younger demographic tries to cope with that, we're looking for solutions that often push us further from where we work or live, or we're having to make some real compromises about the space that we try and buy into or rent. And in both cases, the way in which people in their prime childbearing years are having to then think about raising families looks very, very different from what it did just a few decades ago. And as a result, the generation raising young kids today doesn't look like it did back in the day, and hence it's a bit of a generational ghost town.
What is the impact that you've seen on Vancouver? And do you think that, you mentioned obviously how long it's taking to save a down payment in the GTA. Are there warning signs that that's happening here?
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely rapidly catching up to BC in ways that we just desperately don't want it to. When hard work doesn't pay off, then it raises real questions about how the economy is performing. And in both Ontario right now and British Columbia, what's driving growth, something governments typically take pride in doing, is rising real estate prices. But we don't see then employment playing out to the same degree in those sectors. And what it then means is some people are becoming quite wealthy from sleeping and living in their homes and watching television, more often than not an older demographic that bought some time ago, but then their kids and grandchildren, their dreams of how to make a home are being crushed, or they're being weighed down with really heavy debt levels. And for many, they're not going to get into the home ownership market, but still they're then kind of punished with having to pay more than ever for rent. And then it's hard for them to save for their own retirement down the road. This is a real challenge for the generation raising young kids. And then we actually pick up that the kids that they're raising often start in schools in ways that, they're vulnerable to failing and going to jail and winding up sick themselves. So it's an intergenerational challenge, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. And I know we're going to talk about possible solutions, but I am curious to know, what is the impact on a city if you see younger people, bright young talent, forced to leave?
We often talk about sustainability in terms of environmental issues, and we need to continue to do so. That's critical. But at this current moment, we need to then marry the environmental sustainability conversation with a financial sustainability conversation, because we're squeezing a younger demographic for money, for time, and environmentally. Mm-hmm. And we need to think about how we actually can retain top, well-educated, hardworking talent and not leave them without a fixed address.
So you have an event in Toronto this weekend. The campaign is called #CodeRed.
Yes.
And it's calling for policy changes. So give us a sense of what's going to be happening this weekend.
So I can walk into all the policy details of solutions. That's an important conversation. But I guess the punchline is, politics will find solutions to big problems like affordability on housing in the GTA, but they tend to only do so if people organize and show up. Mm. Politics responds to those who organize and show up, and a younger demographic has been less likely to cast a ballot on voting day, and even more importantly, less likely to get organized in advance of elections to shape the platforms from all parties. And so what we're starting on this Saturday, and if people want more details, they can go to gensqueeze.ca to learn about our event, Saturday, 3 to 5:30, downtown Toronto. Here we're getting people out a year in advance of the next provincial election in Ontario, and showcasing just how bad the circumstances have become for young Ontarians generally, no more so than here in the GTA, and then helping to collaboratively look at some of the policy recommendations that have been working to some degree in Vancouver and elsewhere, and saying, let's not wait as long as Vancouver did. Let's bring them here now so that the standard of living doesn't free fall to the degree in the GTA that it has in Vancouver. It's about protecting the GTA and ensuring the GTA doesn't repeat some of the failures in Vancouver.
Right, a very important discussion. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing your insight with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And good luck this weekend. You've been sharing your struggles to find affordable and livable housing on our Facebook group, and you still can. Just search Toronto Housing Woes-CBC Toronto on Facebook.